This is our last video of our Quilt as You Go series. Today we're going to be learning how to put the binding on to finish up our quilts that we've been working on. So let's get going. So today I'm going to teach you the method of sewing on your binding on the front and the back. There's another method where you can sew it on one way and then on the other side you're going to do it by hand. But because this is a Christmas gift and Christmas is this week, I am going to do sewing on both sides to get it done quickly. Okay, so I sewed all of the binding together and now I'm going to fold it in half and iron it. So I'll just fold it right there in half and iron it all the way down. Okay, now that I have my binding strips all folded and pressed, now I'm going to go ahead and start pinning it to my quilt. So when you start, you're going to take probably, we'll just say around, it's 10 to 12 inches extra and just leave it hanging. We're going to start at the bottom. So I'm looking for my label to know that this is the bottom. I like starting at the bottom. And we're going to sew on the front first and then attach it on the back. Okay, because we want the front to look really nice. So what we want is our raw edges right here to match up with our raw edges on the front. So right here, both of these are raw edges. Okay, so I'm starting right here in the middle. Here's my middle, so I'm going to put my first pin right here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pin it across till I'm about 1/4 of an inch to the end. So I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch seam. And then when I get to right here on the corner, close up and see that, I'm going to drive right off right here. So I'm about 1/4 of an inch in. Okay. So I will have my thing. Looks like I need to repress that one right there. Okay. So I'm going to be right here and I'm going to drive off right here. And then I'll show you how we're going to make a mitered corner. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew, then back stitch and go to the corner and sew off 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so now I sewed off 1/4 of an inch up here. So now we're going to take our binding strip. So we're going to take it. So up. So you want it to be lined up. So about right along the edge. So I have a little extra coming over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the top one with it where I've already sewn. So when I come around, it will be hidden. Okay. So now we're going to, now that it's laid out, then we're going to start right here at the corner and we're going to come straight down. right along the edge. We're just going to do this all the way around the quilt. So the quilt is kind of heavy, so it makes it drag a little bit. Okay, now that we've gone almost all the way around, we've got about roughly about 8 inches here. So now what we're going to do, we have the little bit we started at the front and at the bottom, and we're going to lay it across. And the rule of thumb is whatever you cut your binding across, so this is 2.5 inches, then that is how far you are supposed to lay it, overlap it, okay? So here we have, so I've got my little measuring on my sewing machine right here. I've got good 1, 2.5, so it's about 2.5 is about that far. And then, so that's how far I want it to overlap each other. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snip this one off right there. And then this one will overlap down to here. Okay, so then we're going to take them and we're going to open them up and put the right sides together. So I've got this one laying down this way, and then we're going to turn this one so it will go overlap right here. So look at it, gotta make it work right. Before I even sew, I try to lay it out and make sure I've got it correct. Okay, and then I will, okay, so that way it looks correct. Okay, so we're opening it up, and then we're laying them right against each other. This is kind of a tricky part here. I'm actually back stitching and removing this completely. So you have to do this step before we go on. So we've got our right sides together, and then we're going to sew diagonal to diagonal. So it's going to go from up here to down here. Okay? So we'll go ahead and sew that. As close to the edge as possible, but if you do go have a little fabric sticking over at the top, that's fine. Make sure the thread is down. Okay, I'll try and keep it flat, and sew from that angle, that corner to this corner. Okay, and then I'm going to open it up and see if it works right. Oh, look at that! Yay! It worked. I'm so happy. It doesn't always work out right, but that time it did. Okay, once we see that it has worked out, then we can trim off this edge. Okay, there you go, and then we just fold it back up, and then we lay it down and we sew it on. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to back stitch where I left off. Get to back where you started, go ahead and back stitch. And cut the threads. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take it and wrap it to the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little disclaimer here. So I am still a beginner at binding, and there are many different videos out there that you can do to go and learn how to do it a little bit better than with me. My favorite is with Jenny Doan. She has several different videos on binding. So, but this experience of binding, for me, it works. I am not a perfectionist, but it's getting my quilt done for Christmas. And sometimes when we're in a hurry, we just do the best we can. And if you're a perfectionist, you can go out and find other people who will help you do it just perfectly. Okay, but for me, this is how I can get it done quickly, and it's a beginner's way of doing it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the binding and pull it over to the back side, and then I'm going to pin it in place and then just sew around. So for the corners, when I pull them around, I'm going to be pulling it around, and then I'm going to wrap one side down, and then I'm going to take the other and point it in to get that mitered corner and just pin it nicely. So there's this line right here that I'm trying to wrap it around and pin it right on the line that we made from the front. So this also, if you have any quilting clips, this is a good time that you can use those also. Okay, I'm going to begin sewing around where I pinned now. I'm going to be sewing right on the edge. Once you take the pins out, it kind of wants to pop back up, so you gotta kind of finagle it and keep it down. I do a back stitch, and there's a little fraying that you have to cut off on the edge of your fabric, but then just go ahead and get it, start sewing. Okay, so in some parts I may have sewn over a little too far, and so when I go to wrap it over, there's too much bulk right here, so I am going to trim down a little bit so that there's just 1/4 of an inch inside in this one little strip. So now when I go to wrap this around, it fits. So, and that's what you're gonna have to do. If you have a little too much, you're just gonna have to trim it off. Oh, see, now it lays nicely in this section. These are just little things you have to do when you're learning how to do your binding. You just gotta work with it. I like using my stylus that I have for quilting and sewing, just to hold it down, push things in, keep my fingers away from the sewing machine so I don't run over my fingers with the needle, right? They say quilting is a labor of love, and the reason why is because it takes so long. So most quilts that I make take between a week to 4 weeks to make, and sometimes even longer, depending on the size. So I hope that as you go on your quilting journey, that you will find joy in making gifts for other people. Thank you so much for joining me in making a quilt for my daughter this Christmas.